Hello everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk now. With Quant, they, in my humble opinion, stand out as being one of those that is going to be quote-unquote regulation safe. On top of that, how much would Quant realistically be worth at only 1% of the value of what Web3 can offer? So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's Quant coverage. And as you can see right here, it starts off with this particular statement. I'm going to go ahead and full screen this. So I saw this and I said to myself, you know what? This is worth sharing. And even one of our own, shout out to Mike Cornwell, who basically tagged me in a post on something I was going to put together to begin with. But nonetheless, shout out to him. And this particular person at CryptoChris007, it states, Quant never sold the QNT token to U.S. investors as they weren't allowed to participate in the initial coin offering and never paid for any exchange listing. Very good point. On top of that, FINMA, their Swiss regulator, deemed Quant a utility token, as has the FCA of the UK, where they reside. No clients need to touch Quant. Game, set, and match, Gilbert Verdian, regulation safe. And you like to see these particular statements because, if anything, it instills that investor/buyer confidence. While this is not official financial advice, we can all agree that we need more confidence and to feel as though that regulators are not going to come after various different crypto projects. Like I've also mentioned, yes, technically speaking, they are, but it's the ones that have the solid utility and the ones that have already done their homework, if you will, that are going to last, especially getting through some of these tough regulations that, let's be honest, are looming here on the near horizon soon after the first of the year, if you will, when we have, for instance, the lame duck session of Congress coming back. Let's face it, it's not going to be January 1st. If anything, they'll be coming back strong, if you will, after January 20th. And let's face it, real legislation, or in this case, regulation, will probably be passed sometime mid to late March. Is that in perfect line with, for instance, ISO 222 mandate? Well, let's face it, we can all draw our own conclusion when it comes to just that. Now, check this out. We do cover Coach JV's content here. He does provide great clips. Usually speaking, it's focused towards XRP. And this particular one, I did love this particular statement from him. It says, why is no one talking about this? Everyone is distracted by FTX. And I agree. Everybody is still distracted by FTX because that is hot, mainstream, fresh off the press. How should I say this? Trending news, to say the least. So there's this thing right here. It's called Executive Order 14067. Why is no one talking about this? I couldn't agree more. We're going to play this. You'll definitely see the Quant connection. And then we'll come back for some post commentary. Here we go.
Inside of the Financial Stability Report, they talk about Executive Order 14067. These are the things you need to pay attention to. As Jim Cramer goes crazy and tells you crypto's a fraud, as Jamie Dimon tells you crypto's a fraud, as the Goldman Sachs CEO tells you crypto's a fraud, as Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, tells you crypto is a fraud, in the same breath, not Jim Cramer, but the rest, say that blockchain technology is here to stay. So we have to learn to decipher their language around blockchain technology and crypto. So I'm going to show you a piece in the Financial Stability Report and Executive Order 14067. If you want the full breakdown video, click the link in my bio, subscribe to my YouTube channel. The video's there right now. Now, I know this stuff is not exciting or sexy, but this is the stuff you need to pay attention to, become a long-term fundamental investor. Invest in companies, not crypto. Invest in companies, not stocks. Okay, so this is the Financial Stability Oversight Council annual report. So inside of there, they talk about Executive Order 14067. Now I'm going to show you how the executive order breaks down the difference between crypto and blockchain. Think of crypto as money and think of blockchain as software or technology. This will help you decipher as you hear the news. One of the things they talk about is the risk of runs, bank runs. If you all knew you could be your sovereign bank, you would take your money out of the bank. So the public needs to think that cryptocurrency is a fraud. Now, there is a lot of fraud in cryptocurrency. There's a lot of fraud in the financial space with fiat money as well. But if you knew that you could be your own bank, they would have funding mismatch, they'd have bank runs, and people would become over leveraged, or the banks could become over leveraged. But let me break that down. So banks are already over leveraged. Everybody is over leveraged. The whole public is. So in Executive Order 14067, it breaks down the difference between blockchain and cryptocurrencies. So when they say cryptocurrency is a fraud, I believe, I'm trying to get in their brain, they're referring to things like Dogecoin and Bitcoin because those allow you to become your own monetary system. You can transfer back and forth without a central party. Then when they talk about cryptography, they talk about blockchain. So they say blockchain's here to stay, but cryptocurrency is a fraud. Because blockchain is a technology they need to move their banks into the new system without being obsolete, and cryptocurrency is what makes them obsolete. So they need to get into the game so that this can run through the system so you don't leave the bank. And in today's video, I break down how many banks are invested in crypto companies, the ecosystem that's been created since 2017.
All right, so think about what he said at the beginning, right? For instance, the digital assets, the software. What company really stands out when it comes to that? Quant, 100%, and especially when it comes to the beloved Overledger. So with that said, let's also get into a little bit more in regards to today's coverage for Quant. Now, when I saw this, I said to myself, this is interesting. If you think about what's going on with the central banks of the world, and heck, even some of your local banks, right, with traditional finance, aka TradeFi, you think specifically of how they feel as though that stablecoins is a real threat to that traditional system. Why would the average person want to go back to, for instance, their local Wells Fargo bank or your local bank from where you're at and try to open up a traditional standard savings account? For one, they're not even going to get a full percent on that interest rate. Heck, how about this? Some cases as low as 0.25%. In a lot of cases, it's just simply like 0.5%. That is hardly anything worth even messing with. And with inflation, with as rampant as it is and unpredictable as it can be, in a lot of cases is actually costing you money. So, I remember back when I was a little kid, my grandma, God bless her soul, I miss her so much, very close to her and so on. You guys might have been close with your grandparents or whoever was an influence on you, right? But somebody at some point in your life was trying to give you good advice by telling you you need to save your money. But we live in a day in which that fiat money sitting in a savings account is basically going to go, it's not going to be worthwhile, I should say, right? So check out this particular statement. Not sure which stablecoin the FDIC is on about here, but I'm sure as hell they'll be basically using Quant to help implement it. Yeah, or make it interoperable, to say the least, right? So it says act accordingly, and you're going to hear, a quick statement about under a minute from this particular gentleman addressing just that. Think about how all this is in line with what recently is going on, the threat of regulations, the threat of what's happening to traditional finance, and if anything, the Quant connection. Here we go.
Finally, there may be benefits associated with a payment stablecoin, especially to the extent that it fosters an inclusive real-time payment system. However, as I indicated, there are important risks and policy concerns that will need to be taken into consideration before a payment stablecoin system is developed. And to the extent that a payment stablecoin system is developed, it should be designed in a manner that complements the Federal Reserve's FedNow system and the potential future development of a U.S. central bank digital currency. Those are my thoughts for today. Agent.
U.S. central bank digital currency. What did we just see on our outline the last few weeks? Yeah, we saw basically the Quant connection. How, for instance, Quant basically has worked with MIT since 2020. How, for instance, within the last month or so, there was that New York Federal Reserve connection. How, for instance, it's been confirmed by the Digital Pound Foundation that, oh, by the way, the United States isn't going to be the last to show up to the big show. No, I'm not talking specifically about ISO 222. I am talking about, for instance, what is going on with a United States central bank digital currency. So it's not just, for instance, the Digital Pound Foundation verifying it. It's not just, for instance, the likes of this person from the FDIC of all places to mention this particular language of United States CBDC, right? It's quite a few of them mentioning it. And it's happening literally now rampant, right? Literally almost every other day we see something new about this. Again, the Quant connection. What is that going to instill? How is it going to be broken down? And if anything, how do we act accordingly, like it mentions right here, in response to some of this? All right, a little bit more in regards to our coverage. So I saw this to myself and I thought, you know what? I have shared this guy before. Very passionate person. And if anything, I liked what he mentioned this time. Now, previously on our last Quant video, he basically mentioned a few things like, XDC, or actually not XDC, he mentioned DAG, right? And if anything, that connection to the United States Air Force, which, don't get me wrong, it's huge. Well, in this particular clip, I thought he did a very good job by mentioning, like what you see right here, opportunity in a lifetime. ISO 222, XLM, HBAR, IOTA, XDC Network, XRP, Algo, and the king of them all, Quant. You all going to take this opportunity for your kids and make it happen, right? We are doing what? We're researching these things because we rightfully should to create that generational wealth. You have already recognized what the likes of Quant bring to the table. If anything, they're not just pioneers of Web3, they're the innovators of Web3. Let's go ahead and get into this particular clip. 2 minutes, 11 seconds. Really pounds it home of just how all this is simply an opportunity of a lifetime. Here we go.
Quant's max supply is 14,600,000. Why is that important? Let me remind you something. Look at Bitcoin here. Bitcoin has a max supply. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. Let me remind you something else, because we're looking at tokenomics real quick. ILV, because some of y'all don't understand what I'm showing you. Alluvium, there will only ever be 10 million Alluvium. Now, why am I sharing all this with you? Alluvium right now in this bear market is trading at $39. Pay attention, Alluvium, $39. Let me slide down here and show you something. In the bull market of 2021, Alluvium's all-time high was $2,800. The all-time high was $2,800. The max supply, 10 million. Who's paying attention? Bitcoin's max supply is 21 million. Bitcoin right now is sitting at $16,700. There will only ever be 14 million Quant and it's sitting at $110. What does, just based off of what I'm showing you with tokenomics, what does that tell you about this project? Almost 250,000 people have it on their watch list. And what did I just show you? Right? Let me remind you something. Wait for it, because I'm making a real point here, because some of y'all don't understand what I'm doing here. Look. ISO 20022. A single standardization approach, methodology, process, repository to be used by all financial standard initiatives. This is a protocol that is going to be used by every bank in the world, all of them, all the financial standards. It doesn't say some, it doesn't say many, it doesn't say most, it says all. ISO 20000.
Yep, absolutely all. And that big mandate that's coming up in March is going to be something else, to say the least. Now, let's get a little bit more into our particular coverage. All right, so there's this right here. And if anything, you know, we've shared with you guys, I would say at least 3 times, if not more, when it comes to this whole thing of LAC chain, right? And it's absolutely massive when it comes to Quant going into 2023. So shout out to this particular person, Lord Quantonian, Shektoria Longholes, who shared this basically a couple days ago with this particular hot take. It says specifically, if you're not balls deep into holding Quant going to 2023, where LAC chain will be going live with Quant's Latin American dollar, right? aka MLT, multi-ledger tokens, tokenization to enabling roaming money. I'm not sure you've been paying attention. Rolled first here, right? Interoperability. I'm going to blow this part up just a little bit. So for instance, you know, we showed this a while back, but yeah, LAC chain as a quantum safe network of networks, right? You see how all this is broken down. On top of that, I like this particular statement, right? But my, you know, Bitcoin, my stable coin, my XRP. Well, yeah, I would agree with XRP, but you know, some people, like this person, obviously, isn't for it. But for the purposes of this video, again, the Quant connection, the focus is Quant. So it says traditional finance methods like Visa. Oh, by the way, who has that connection to, for instance, Visa, MasterCard, with years of experience, many years of experience? Gilbert Verdian, right? And not only that, he still has those relationships with the likes of Visa and MasterCard. So it says, how about multi-chain Lightning Network like approach where it doesn't matter what you use because they are all denominated and have values as such? Why only choose one payment channel / rail? That's a good point. So if anything, look at this. So as you can see, we have this right here. If anything, I want to zoom in on it a little bit more. So some of you guys have seen this in the past, right? This particular presentation that Gilbert, you know, brought to the attention of various organizations and so on. But it states overledger interchange, multi-asset, and payment interchange. Think about how this is all connected. For instance, this particular bank or institution, right, from Party A, also the one from Party B, the interchange transaction, right, transaction services. Then, for instance, you have overledger. You know, you have the broker of that. You have the delivery versus payment, cross-chain atomic swaps, something that we don't exactly talk about a lot here, but let's face it, there is that. Then look at this particular breakdown, right? So you have, you know, the CBDCs, for instance, a digital pound, right? And then how it's tied into the central banks. Heck, even in that mix, you have Ripple, right? And then you have, for instance, digital currency stable coins. And on top of that, the agency bank, right, for faster payments, BACS/CHAPS of the UK, SEPA of the European Union, and then of course what we always talk about quite a bit, not necessarily on Quant videos, but let's face it, Swift does get brought up quite a bit. And then of course on the bottom, bank.uk, you have, for instance, those particular schemes, right, that request to pay open banking. Now, when I went further down into this, I said to myself, well, this is another thing that's worth sharing because it's true. All right. And some of the Bitcoin maxis out there, they're definitely going to hop on this. So it says, for instance, disintermediation is the future. Bitcoin enabled a peer-to-peer payment network with no intermediaries, the beginning of a revolution, right? Well, how about this for size, right? Then, of course, there's the response to that. Again, the actions, the reactions to everything. But the evolution has been happening since 2009, and the enabler is just that, interoperability, right? For this, I choose Quant and the Overledger. And, of course, you guys have seen this particular outline before. If anything, we've done it on the live show quite a few times. You know, you have, for instance, the public permissionless blockchains, basically Bitcoin, heck, you know, Stellar's blockchain. You have, for instance, EOS, IOTA, Ethereum, Constellation, as in DAG, and then, you know, some of these other ones you see, and so on. Again, but Overledger basically makes it all interconnected, interoperable, to say the least. Then you have enterprise permission blockchains. You have Hyperledger. You know, we always talk about R3's Corda. We have, for instance, JP Morgan's Quorum, Classic ETH. There's even Ripple. Existing networks, platform, enterprise systems, applications. The Quant connection connects it all, makes it all interoperable, to say the least. All right. Then, of course, you know, we showed you guys a while back that, you know, there's this particular statement where, you know, you have LAC chain, which we basically mentioned earlier. But I'll state it again. Where anyone can basically, let me blow that up a little more, operate a gateway and connect to any other gateway within the network, and with future IETF standards being developed, SATP on gateway interoperability to enable an ecosystem of ecosystems. That's a good, valid point. And it's going to happen with the help of what? MIT and Quant. Again, that particular CBDC connection has literally been in development since roughly sometime, I believe, last summer of 2020, somewhere in that particular range. All right, a little bit more in regards to our particular coverage. I saw this, and again, it wouldn't be a proper Quant video without giving a clip or a segment to the one and only Quant Papa, right? So, if anything, look at this. It says Quant, probably nothing. Well, it never is nothing. It's always something. So, for instance, when we blow this up, there's quite a bit here, right? So, I will get into most of this because people basically need to know about this stuff. So it says, well summarized, the idea and inception was in 1997. Again, kind of like the concept of Quant. Gilbert Verdian gives this really eloquent breakdown. Stemmed from security, had a concern with the fundamental insecure architecture of the internet. Again, remember he was talking about all the walled gardens? It says there was a better way to create a secure internet, had to wait patiently for 20 years in his security career for Satoshi in 2008. Then, the technology was not there in 1997 to create a more secure internet. Excuse me. To complement the existing one. Firewalls were mainly routers with ACLs. True. Security was treated as part of networking. Wanted to bridge the details existing internet with a more secure enclave. On top of that, decided the best way to have a career in security was wait for the technology to catch up. Worked at basically CSC, EY, PwC, HSBC, right? That gets brought up quite a bit. BP, Vocalink, MasterCard, right? UK government, Australian government, US government, while working out how we can make the internet protocols better and more secure. This isn't just some random guy running a company like some of the Bitcoin maxis want to point out that, you know, oh, he's a CEO that could basically just rug this whole operation if he wanted to. Satoshi Nakamoto, he has no face, he's never going to do that, and so on. Okay, I understand. That is very appealing, and I give credit where credit's due, because if anything, you know, for people that are super into Bitcoin, that seems to work out for them. And if anything, you know, it's a very unique white paper to say the least. But again, you're talking about somebody that literally recognized Satoshi's plan years ago, long before it ever came into full fruition of what we know today as just that, the Satoshi white paper, the concept of Bitcoin. You get the gist. So next, it says, the protocols and architecture of the internet of today was designed without security in mind from the 1950s, resulting in ARPANET. A lot of people, of course, consider that the Soviet Union was the original ones to create the original internet. If you ever seen that hit show from was it FX? FX is The Americans. Great show, by the way. Highly recommended. Finished a couple years ago, actually. But anyway, they reference ARPANET in that particular show. But anyway, states they never envisioned the networks to be used in the way that we do today. I call this new internetwork the NEO network, NN, in 1997. And on top of that, again, some of this particular outlines, I know this is a lot of it's verbatim, but if anything, when I saw this, I said to myself, there's some people just don't realize the experience this man brings to the table. So it says NN would sit alongside the internet and provide a way to do secure transactions and be designed with secure protocols and enable to transact money. The technology of the early 2000s was just not there, and it wasn't, right? I mean, technically speaking, we're still in Web 1 at that point. It wasn't until roughly the mid 2000s, right? Was it 2005 to about roughly 2009 that we even had that big leap towards Web 2? How do we know that? Basically, when we launched big time into social media, that leap from, for instance, MySpace to Facebook and so on, right? So it states, then comes the Satoshi paper in October 2008, saw it a couple weeks after it was released and loved it. Whoever Satoshi are, key thing right there, are, not is, right? They understood security, decentralization, and internet scale networks. I was in the UK government at HM Treasury at the time during the financial crisis. Satoshi are on the right track. Decentralization is almost impossible in distributed systems. This is worth exploring and evolving. Being at a very senior level in the UK government, asked my colleagues to assess and do a policy on Bitcoin in 2008. UK was the first government to assess Bitcoin. Very good, valid point. And they were. Then, of course, you see what's going on with CBDCs and so on. And if anything, who stands out? The UK government. Then, says in 2013, moving from UK government to the Australian government, established the blockchain ISO standard TC307 in 2015. Like TCP/IP, this was the right way to create a common framework for interoperable and secure blockchain networks. 57 countries now work on this particular standard. Then it states, with standards, my vision from 1997 was becoming a reality to create a more secure, complementary internet that is designed for the future and embeds security into its core protocols. It was then that I established Quant to shape the technology and apply the wealth of experience. Then finally, and security expertise to make this mainstream for mass adoption. Key phrase here. Expertise to make this mainstream for mass adoption. We're talking about mass adoption at scale that nobody else is doing. When we talk specifically about all these crazy price predictions and how Quant basically makes this all interoperable, literally connected to everything, then I think about that particular statement to make this go mainstream for mass adoption. It's not saying specifically, oh, well, we're not going to include retail, right? Let's face it. Even if we didn't include retail, we all know where the real money is at. It's institutional money. Institutional money is how we land crazy market caps at the scale that nobody else has ever seen in the entire history of blockchain companies that have various projects and so on that produce certain tokens, coins. You get the gist. Because now we are at the beginnings of the evolution and can't wait for this milestone after its inception over 20 years ago. We'll have to write a book about the full story and details. Here's to building the future. I'm not going to wait for him to basically write that book. I want to be part of this particular journey. And if anything, I think you guys understand the importance of being in at something at an early point, right? It's that ride to getting towards that mass adoption to the top, creating that generational wealth. Quant is the future. All right, a little bit more. So I saw this and I said to myself, well, it's always nice to save some of the best to last. So all the criticism I've been getting lately, and I didn't get a lot, right? But I did get a little bit, and it was okay. On the live show yesterday, we had a particular gentleman that was on, and let's face it, I did refer to him as a Bitcoin maxi. He doesn't like XRP. He doesn't like Quant for the most part. But you know what? I was able to have a good, I guess you could say, a good argument, a good debate, you know, and I just simply told him I think this is where we agree to disagree. And if anything, he respected that. I mean, he stated that he loves their channel, even though, like I mentioned, he's a Bitcoin maxi and he's not for XRP and so on. Again, I think in this country, in the United States of America, we need to get back to the table of being a society that can simply agree to disagree. As the saying goes, and I'm going to keep riding with this, don't attack the messenger, or don't attack the debater, attack the argument, right? Big, huge difference. So, crazy price prediction here, right? $13 million a coin or token. Are you kidding me? You guys, some of you guys thought I was nuts when it came to 100,000, right? Or, you know, for instance, $1 million. Well, how about this one? $13 million token. All right, gonna play this, and then we'll come back here in a little bit for some more commentary.
Increasing interlinkages between the crypto ecosystem and the traditional financial system.
And we're also allowing people to connect blockchain networks and the whole blockchain world to existing networks through the Overledger.
Connecting payment systems, both domestically and across borders.
And we can actually interconnect what already exists, which makes sense.
With all the benefits of having interoperable systems.
We connect existing systems.
The interconnectedness between the different systems.
Where we're able to interconnect different blockchain networks with payment systems.
Interoperable, that their systems are congruent between each other.
They're able to leapfrog all the legacy infrastructure.
Financial infrastructure could also leapfrog directly to a CBDC arrangement.
We connect existing systems.
Focus on interoperability.
And we can actually interconnect what already exists, which makes sense.
The implementation of any CBDCs would need to be accompanied by policy reforms and safeguards to address difficulties and risks, and operational challenges, including cybersecurity.
A 20-year career in cybersecurity. I ran the payment infrastructure as the Chief Security Officer for the Bank of England. So keeping all the money safe across all the payment systems and the payment rails.
Can be interlinked, and not just with each other all over the world, but also with existing payment systems.
It sits on top of blockchain and existing networks. It's interoperable. We can connect any to any in terms of existing networks, blockchain networks, different technologies. What we're doing is really the only technology that can sit on top and give you that interoperability at a very low protocol level. So think of it as TCP/IP of blockchain. So we're doing it at internet scale. Our technology is the bridge to be able to securely interconnect and interoperate between different networks. We're an infrastructure provider that creates interoperable digital assets, and we've interconnected Quarter with other DLTs. And
Quant will help officially launch the LACchain project in 2023, with the potential to rocket an entire region into the future.
We're shaping the system.
Rocket everything, shape the system, make everything interoperable. Literally, as the saying goes, etc., 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 right? All right. So last but not least, I do want to show you guys this. So, you know, going a little bit further down, there's this right here. And this is the icing on the cake, if you will. Because, you know, I realized at the beginning I did mention, or I should say, beginning of the video, I mentioned the whole thing about, you know, Quant and only basically hitting 1% of Web3, right? I like these scenarios. You know, I did it with the XRP video and so on. For whatever reason, that video didn't get a lot of views for some reason, but that's okay. Sometimes, you know, XRP can be a very saturated market as far as content creation goes. But look at this. It says 1% of Web3 in Quant. So it says at the top, Gilbert Verdian, agree with us. The Internet of Value will dwarf the legacy web. We are trusting the cryptography protocols and decentralized networks for the first time to create and move value. The legacy web was designed to move information. It was never intended to transact money or value, right? And then, of course, this person originally puts, for instance, you know, dream big, sees 140 trillion potential aggregate Web 3.0 market cap at scale, right? We talked about, for instance, what Web 3 would be worth. Some people, for instance, mentioned what the metaverse would be worth and so on. But nonetheless, look at this at scale that nobody's ever seen before, right? Again, these are just predictions and whatnot, but if anything, think about what Web 3 basically could very well be worth. So it says roughly, you know, 140 trillion potential market cap at scale. 1% of Web3 in Quant. Listen to this. If Quant had a market cap of 1.4 trillion, one Quant would be worth 103.6 thousand, I should say, an upside of 1009x, right? And some people, of course, thought some of my predictions were insane. So you saw the other one, you know, before that, 13 million a coin. It sounds nuts. I know that on that particular one, I guess even I have to admit that's pretty darn crazy, but you never know. But yeah, how about this? I mean, this is kind of close to, you know, some of the ones I was originally stating. I did mention on the live show, I saw this going up to about 103. And again, we're basing on very conservative numbers, right? 1% of Web3. Imagine if it was even 2%. And then from there, you can do the math on that. So again, I thought that was, if anything, like I mentioned, the icing on the cake, if you will. And then last, I do have to mention this. So look at Quant's price, right? Just slightly up, but if anything, $106. I think the last time I paid for Quant was like roughly 115, 120, right? We do see the volume is up about 12.5%. You know, by the way, confirmed market cap of 1.2 billion, and it's sitting at a rank of 31. With a very, very attractive circulating supply of a little over 12 million. All right, going to come back into the frame here briefly. And if anything, I just want to state, thank you so much for watching from the beginning to the end of this particular video. Hopefully you guys enjoy these particular deep dives. Haven't got any complaints as of lately when it comes to, for instance, making these shorter, longer, whatever the case. If I can make them shorter, I definitely would, but if anything, I don't want to take away from the value of the research, to say the least. So guys, thanks so much. And if you enjoy the content, like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification if you haven't done so already. If you enjoy a live show, you can check us out every single day of the week for either myself, Larry, with Crypto Talk Now. A lot of times we're on the show together, and there's other times we have, for instance, a weekly show. By the way, it's a new thing we've been doing. We've been going about 3 weeks in a row, if I'm not mistaken. It's referred to as the Crypto Roundtable, and those particular ones are at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Wednesdays. So again, thanks again for watching, and let's face it, holidays are coming up, so Merry Christmas Eve in advance, and of course, hope you all have a great Christmas weekend coming up. Look out for some more content even during the holidays, believe it or not. And it's just that, everybody, may you all have a blessed night and day, depending on where you are. We'll see you on the next one.